Before you actually start recording with your Zoom H5, there are a few things you want to have handy to make sure your recording goes as well as possible. A fresh pair of AA batteries, an SD memory card, and a comfortable pair of headphones. There are also a few things you should do before you actually get started with your recording. First, make sure you have the batteries located into the back compartment of the H5. Then, connect your headphones into the headphone jack on the left side of the unit so that you can monitor what the H5 is capturing as you're recording. And finally, make sure you have your memory card inserted into your recorder on the right side of the unit. Now, for the sake of this review, I'm going to use two different microphones. The H5 allows you to record with microphones using what's called an XLR connector. You can see the three different pins here on one end of the cable. And you can see that the ports on the bottom of the H5 have corresponding holes for these three pins. Oh, and if you have some questions about phantom power or what types of microphones might work best for you, I've included a link in the description for more information. Now it's time to turn on the recorder itself. Push the power hold switch on the left side of the unit toward the little power sign. Make sure to keep it pressed for a couple of seconds. Now that the H5 is powered up and working, click the menu button on the right side of the unit. Use the scroll wheel selector to select In, Out. Then select In 1/2 Phantom. Then select On, Off. At this point, I'm going to select Input 1 and then select Off, because the microphone I have connected to Input 1 doesn't use phantom power. This brings me back to the screen where I can select which input I want to set. Now I'm going to select Input 2, then select On, because the mic I have connected to Input 2 does require phantom power. Then I'm going to click the menu button to get back to the screen where I can select Voltage. I want to make sure that I have 48 volts selected because that's the voltage that most phantom-powered microphones use, mine included. Then I'll click the menu button again and again until I get back to my main recording screen. Now we have to tell the H5 which microphone inputs we want to actually use for our recording. You can see there are 4 round buttons directly below the 2 gain knobs in the middle of the unit. The 2 buttons on the left correspond to the 2 stereo microphones on the capsule on the top of the unit. They're labeled L and R for left and right. The buttons labeled 1 and 2 correspond to the XLR inputs at the base of the recorder. You're going to want to make sure that the red indicator lights for the stereo capsule are disengaged. If they are lit, you want to make sure to turn them off. Just press either the L or the R button to turn those microphones off. And you want to do just the opposite for the indicator lights for the XLR input 1 and XLR input 2, depending on if you're using 1 or 2 microphones. I'm using 2 microphones, so I'm going to make sure that both of those indicator lights are engaged. Next, take notice of the audio meters on the display screen. They offer a real-time reading of the audio levels the H5 senses. You can use these numbered control knobs on the front of the microphone capsule to adjust the sensitivity of the microphones, like this. You're going to want to adjust these dials while speaking into the microphones or recording whatever source you're trying to capture until you get your levels where you want them. For the sake of recording a voiceover, you're going to want your levels to be peaking somewhere between -12 and -6. But before we get started, there's one more setting you're going to want to change in the menus. First, click on the menu button, then use the scroll wheel to select the record button, Then select Record Format, and then make sure you have the Wave 48 kHz 24-bit option selected. Then you can click on the menu button until you get back to your home recording screen. Choosing this setting will give you the highest recording quality available on the H5. So now you're ready to start capturing your voiceover. But at the moment, we're not actually recording anything. You can tell because the numbers at the top of the display screen are still sitting at zeros. In order to start recording, you're going to have to press Record, and the numbers will begin climbing. The indicator light just to the left of the record button will also glow red. Now you know that you're actually recording to your memory card. You might also want to take note of the file name just above the on-screen meters. These file names can be used in case you want to take some notes about different files you're recording for reference later when you're organizing the files on your computer or working with an audio editor. While you're recording, there might come a time when you want to pause the recording because you need to cough or something like that. When you want to, just press the pause button to pause the recording and then press it again to continue recording right where you left off within the same file. To end the recording completely, just press stop. The recording is ended and the file is automatically saved to your SD card. And when you want to start a new recording, just press record again. The recorder starts recording to a new file, which you can tell because the file name has now changed. At some point, you're going to want to migrate the recording files from your recorder to your computer so you can actually do stuff with it. There are basically two ways of doing this. You can remove the SD card from the recorder by opening the card slot door and pushing on the card to release it. Then you insert this card into the SD card slot on your computer. Your computer should recognize it as it would any other external hard drive or USB drive. From there, you can drag and drop the files onto your own computer and do with them as you see fit. The other way of getting the recording files from your H5 to your computer is to use a USB cable. One end of the cable should be a standard USB connector. The other end of the cable should be a smaller USB mini connector. Make sure you've powered down your H5 before you connect to this cable. Once it's connected, then you turn your H5 back on. Instead of defaulting to your home recording screen, the H5 will give you the option of acting as an SD card reader or as an audio interface for your computer. Select the SD card reader option by using the scroll wheel selector. Once you do that, your H5 should appear on your desktop just like any other external drive or USB drive you might want to connect. From there, as before, you can drag and drop the files and do with them as you wish on your own computer. And that is how you can record your voiceover or your narration using external microphones with the Zoom H5 portable recorder.